Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks for joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and today I'm joined by Dr. Robin, who we've had before, but definitely a unique and fascinating topic we're talking through today. So thank you so much for making time to spend with us.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for asking.
Of course. So we've done this before, but we're doing it a little differently today. So tell me all about you and why you do what you do.
Oh, all about me and why I do what I do. Oh my goodness, that's a long story. So the last time we talked, I told you kind of jokingly, if I ever write my memoir, it's going to be titled, I'd like to thank the cartel for getting me out of the cult. And we talked about my story of growing up in a cult and being married off to my first cousin, and then him getting involved in the cartel and getting kicked out of the cartel and the whole mess, and then marrying a narcissistic closeted bisexual. And right before we went on, I told you a little bit, but in spring of this year, I was talking to somebody and she called me by my last name at the time. I was like, oh, please don't call me that. She's like, why? It's your name. I'm like, it's not. It's my ex-husband's name. It's just the name I happen to be stuck with. And she said something very powerful to me. She said, Robin, you cannot build a life you love on a name you hate. And that was a gut punch for me. And I do that with my clients where I say things and they go, oh, wow. That was one of those, oh, wow moments for me. And so I started working on the process of, okay, I'm going to change my name. I'm going to figure it out. And I took my middle name and made it my last name, and I gave myself a new middle name. And along the way, that inspired me then to start writing the book, I'd like to thank the cartel. And in May, I was like, I'll just write a little bit. And I got the bug, and I wrote 110,000 words in 40 days.
That's amazing.
Messy first draft, of course, but the first draft in 40 days. And it really helped me recognize that I do use the skills that I teach clients. I do create change in my own life that I help clients do. So that whole idea of I've been through chaos, I can lead through chaos. I can be the fire jumper. I can come in and fight fires from the inside. But I've also been thinking about a lot recently, what if we don't have to burn it all down to start over? What if we can grow really strong roots that just let us outgrow the situation? Because I feel like I've really outgrown a lot of the things that in the past I've had to burn down to start over. So that's kind of where I am right now.
That's huge and wildly inspirational. So for folks that are maybe listening the first time or meeting you for the first time, can you give more of an overview of, your book? And I know you shared a piece of it, but
Yeah.
where you came from and how you got to the point you are today.
Yeah. So if they go to thankthecartel.com, they can actually download a deleted chapter called Everything's Better in Black Stilettos. So that is one place that they can start before the book actually comes out. But give a little bit of background. Yes. So I grew up in a cult. At 18, I was married off to my first cousin, and then he moved me from California out to North Carolina. And when I got there, it took me about 6 months to learn three things about my new husband. One, he wasn't very bright. Two, he was badly in debt. And three, he had a drug problem. But those three things became silver linings for me. Because he wasn't bright, he couldn't maintain the grooming that had been put in place by the cult that, oh, you're just a woman, you can't make decisions, you're bad with money, you need a man to feed you. Like all of those things that they teach you as a woman, that the only value you have is your body and your ability to be a wife and a mother, which are perfectly reasonable things to be, but not the only thing that women should be expected to be. All of those ideas started to fall away because he wasn't bright enough to maintain them. Because he was in debt, he made me get a job, which married women in my family didn't work outside the home. So that was a huge deal. And I started having access to the outside world, other people, my own money, that kind of thing. But I stayed because the last thing my father said to me before I got married was, "You're no longer welcome in my home as a single woman."
Mm.
And I really didn't believe I could make it on my own. I didn't think I could. And so I made a commitment before our friends and God, and I'm going to make this work. And I am nothing if resilient to the point of being stubborn. And so I stayed. And 8.5 years later, he threw me out. My husband said to me, "I don't love you. I don't want to be married to you. And I don't want you living in my house." Never mind that that house was literally a slab of concrete, plywood walls, and a tin roof. I was cutting the grass in the bedroom because it was growing under the wall.
Wow.
And my husband called my father and told him that he threw me out because I was lazy. And my father called and said, "If you had been appropriately submissive, you would have been able to make it work."
Mm.
And I felt shame and guilt and all of the things. But fortunately for me, my best friend, who I had met at work, had a spare bedroom and she let me move in with her. And I started the process. At that point, I was like 26, 27 years old, of figuring out, who am I? And what does it look like to be whatever it is I'm supposed to be? I started playing competitive beach volleyball, made a little bit of money playing volleyball, which was a lot of fun. Had a real job, paid the real bills, but made a little money playing volleyball. But then I didn't do enough therapy and I made my own mistake. I married a narcissistic, closeted bisexual. 0 out of 5 stars, do not recommend. He moved me to Long Island, couldn't get a job. I was just a pretty girl with a high school diploma. And so he said to me, "We don't need your silly money anyway. Why don't you just go to college?" And then he promptly took a job in London, England, left me on Long Island. So I did. And in 6 years, I got 3 degrees: undergrad, master's, doctorate, while flying back and forth to Europe to host wine tastings and dinner parties and grease the wheels of my husband's corporate career. He came back shortly after I graduated. There's a whole chapter in the book about how he wouldn't give me, he told me, "You didn't ask permission to write a book," when I wanted to turn my dissertation into a book. I'm like, "Permission? What are you even talking about?" That divorce was as ugly as you can imagine. And then I got out of that and it was like, okay, now I have a doctoral degree. I own a piece of paper that says I own an LLC, and I've started turning my dissertation into a book. None of that is feeding me. So the last thing he had said to me was, "You'll never make it without me. You're going to live under a bridge in a box."
Mm.
And I had to figure out how to not make that happen. So I started my business. I did corporate training and public speaking and executive coaching and sports psychology. I met my current husband at the gym. He's a phenomenal partner for me, former competitive bodybuilder and trainer on the Mr. Olympia tour. Had to ask him out 4 times. That story's in the book too. And, wrote my second book, kind of made it kind of work, making it, figure it out. And then we started a business, health and wellness business, my husband and I together. And then COVID happened. And the whole thing crashed, all of it. My business, his business, our business, everything. And I had to decide, okay, third time, we're going to figure out, who are we? What are we doing? How do we pick ourselves up? And talking to a client is where I got the moniker Mental MacGyver, and how I realized that my real kind of superpower, if you will, is the ability to recognize and deal with chaos. I'm good at it. Been there, done that. And that became the business model I have now, where I work with founders and funders under fire. When things go sideways, I'm the person you call. And that is the space between executive coaching and therapy and business strategy. And now I have a little dog I teach to do circus tricks, a really good life, and it's working. And now the book. I'd like to thank the cartel for getting me out of the cult.
I mean, that's just the whole thing is such a mic drop, really, right? Like you've experienced so much, and I feel like each kind of avenue you've been able to turn that, learn from it, grow from it, but then try to help others along the way.
At some point, I'd like to get to the point where I can stop having lessons. Like, I like to grow enough to be like, okay, I'm good now. I don't know if that's a thing in life. If you can do that and not be, okay, I'm over with life, I'm going to move on to the next thing. But I feel like I've done a lot of lessons. The first 40 years of my life, I lived multiple lifetimes.
I mean, again, anybody listening has gone through anything that you're experiencing. I mean, you've come out the other side and continue to lift others. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like I had kind of two options. There was no middle ground. I could be rocking in the corner addicted to cocaine and drugs, and because that's the life my first husband had, or I could figure it out.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
And I was really fortunate that I chose the path to figure it out.
Well, with this, I mean, we talk about money on the podcast too, and money memories. And clearly you've seen so much in so many different aspects of your existence. What's a money memory that you have that pops in mind of how initially you started having a relationship with money? And I'll give you a twist on that too. So not
Okay.
only that, but also how did you see that? How did you embed that seed? And have you had to change the narrative along the way to make it healthy for yourself now?
Ooh, that's a lot of questions. Okay.
It's like three.
Yeah. Whew, okay. One thing I remember, and I wrote about this in the book a little bit, is that my first husband was horrible with money. And I remember, so when my dad chose him, it was because a woman can't feed herself and can't put a roof over her own head and needs someone to put clothes on her back. And so when I married him when I was 18 and he was 29, the assumption was that he would take care of me. That was the assumption. I don't know if my father didn't know, if he didn't do due diligence. But when I got to North Carolina, there was a stack of paper on the counter and I was like, well, I don't like that. Let me fix it. I started going through it and I found loans for his truck. I didn't know you could even get a loan on a vehicle. I thought you paid cash for vehicles. There was a water bill that hadn't been paid, a power bill that hadn't been completely paid. There was a credit card with mounting debt in it. All of the airline travel he'd done, all the gifts he'd given me, all the long distance phone calls were all on credit. And he didn't have a job right then because he had been put on legal leave of absence from his job because he had gotten caught going 110 and a 55 and lost his driver's license. So he couldn't work as a welder. So my first experience as an adult with money was realizing we are really badly in debt. He was supposed to be taking care of me. We have no money coming in. What are we going to do? And that was the impetus for me getting a job. And I didn't know you were supposed to negotiate. So the very first offer I got from a bank for $13,500 a year, I was like, yes, I can take the bus in. It's a regular hours job and you'll pay me and I can, okay, yes. And the woman was like, really? I didn't know you were supposed to negotiate. I'm sure she was expecting me to. And that negatively affect, if you start at a low salary, every increase you get is on a smaller amount, so it negatively impacts your income forever.
That's wild. And then obviously from that journey, changing the narrative to where you are now.
So there are still demons, if you will, that I bump into that I recognize now. Like, I will hoard money given the opportunity. I will squirrel it away. I will put it in long-term savings accounts. And once I move it out of my checking account, like once it's somewhere else, then it no longer exists. And I feel broke all of the time. And my husband will sit down with me and say, Robin, let's do your net worth. Let's look at how far you've come. And logically, I completely get it. On paper, yes, we are not broke. We are not living under a bridge in a box. We're okay. I still have the demons from, oh my God, we have overdue bills and no money coming in. And I have to fight them every day.
That's hard. I
It
can't
is.
imagine, right? Having that same mindset and having to change or try to change your narrative every single day.
Every day there's things like we were just this weekend, we went down to one of the local nurseries. I have more house plants than any human needs. And we're at the season where I need to be bringing them in the house. And there's more than there were when I put them out in the spring. And I'm giving them away. I'm gifting the people. But we were down and I was looking at flower pots and different things or whatever. And there was one and it was on sale for like I don't know, $15, whatever it was on sale, 50% off on sale. And I picked it up and I looked at it, it was really cute, and I set it down. And my husband was like, do you want it? I'm like, it's $15 and I don't need it. He's like, that's not what I asked you. So it's that difference between do I need it or do I want it? Does it bring me joy?
Mm.
Am I allowed to spend money on things that bring me joy? And that's hard for me.
And that's true because there's a want and a need, but then joy is a factor. Joy is a
Yeah.
factor, and it should be a
And I've
factor in
never,
everything we do.
right, but I've never allowed myself to do that because I've always, not always, but for much of my life, I need that money for a rainy day. And that's the old Protestant cult mindset, right? Never spend money, you might need it for a rainy day, which is interesting because if your God is powerful enough with all of that, why do you not believe he'll take care of you? Why do you have to, basically bury your money and hide it for a rainy day? It's an interesting dynamic.
It's a fear-based dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, money's a tool, right? I truly, I think I've said this to you before when we've chatted. I don't believe into the fact that money should be anyone's God. Money should be a
Right.
tool so you can have more decisions to make choices that bring you
Mm-hmm.
joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And every once in a while, I'll allow myself to do something that I'm like, this is a want, not a need, but it's going to bring me joy. And there's always that little voice, what if, what if, what if? It's interesting. It's interesting how those demons stay. The emotional trauma stays with you long after you overcome it.
And I think the first step is, I mean, the psychology of money I find so fascinating, right? Why people do what they do. But the mere
Mm-hmm.
fact that you're realizing your narrative and you know that's happening and you
Mm-hmm.
can have that conversation with yourself saying, okay, obviously this is coming from past experiences.
Yeah.
Where am I at in this moment? Does this bring me joy in this moment as well? Like I was talking to somebody earlier and I feel like with momentum of life and momentum of like the law of attraction, you can't sit on the couch and eat bonbons, right? You need to be active, you need to be doing something positive for yourself. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
working or generating money, right? By all means.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing the right things, are you able to also have joy in those moments financially as well?
And it's really interesting to look at how I look at money compared to how my current husband does. Because he grew up, his mom was a bartender in a time when women were not single mothers. She was a bartender, she raised two boys, and he has no scarcity mindset at all.
Hmm.
Like she was completely, when she passed away earlier this year. She had so much Christmas stuff in her house, like houses and houses of decorative worth of Christmas stuff. And my husband Russ said it brought her joy. And she would, if she liked it,
Oh.
she would buy it. And she never worried about money. And he doesn't either. And I think that that's amazing that I grew up, yes, I was very, very poor growing up, but never in my adult life have I not known that I was going to be able to eat. But I have this mindset that, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to eat? Whereas he really lived, his mother was barely making ends meet, and he doesn't have it at all,
Hmm. That's fascinating.
isn't it?
Totally. So, I mean, that goes hand in hand with, financial infidelities. And you've obviously shared quite a
Yes.
few, but what's a financial infidelity that you haven't shared already that you think others could learn from?
Um, Very early on in my first marriage, before I even realized that this is not ever going to be viable, I learned that he was hiding cash in the toes of his shoes in his closet.
Wow.
And we had this really weird dynamic where we had come to this agreement because he was overdrawing the checking account constantly, that he couldn't write checks because he just wouldn't balance it. And I worked for the bank, it would get me fired. And so we had an agreement that his straight time he would put in the account so I could budget against it, but his overtime he was allowed to keep and spend as cash. And I would ask, like, where is all this cash going? And I knew that some of it was going to drugs. He absolutely was spending it on drugs. He was also buying food, which I was like, we have food at home. Why are you buying food? But even still, I couldn't figure out, like, where is it all going? And I learned much later that he was hiding it. And I
Mm.
don't understand. I mean, his story, not my story, but why was he so insecure in our marriage? He's the one who married me because I was good stock and I was young and malleable. Like, I don't understand why he was had decided within the first like 18 months that, yeah, I need to hide money from her.
Hmm. I wonder what his money memory was.
Yeah, I don't know. He had, I mean, he had his own demons, obviously,
Sure.
but yeah, yeah,
The psychology of money. It's always so fascinating.
yeah.
Even, couples or people that grew up together or family members have such different versions of their own experiences because that's truly, like you had said, that's their story.
hmm The boys and the girls in my family, so there's 8 of us, 3 girls and 5 boys, and we have very different dynamics around money because my mom was very much, oh my goodness, there's not enough. If I get $100 to buy a new dress, I need to carry that with me for the next 3 years before I spend it. Whereas for the boys, once we got out of being in really, really bad poverty and my dad started working a real job, there was always money for the boys to do stuff because dad was more comfortable with money. And in our family, the girls, me and my 2 sisters, have a lot more money trauma than the boys do.
Hmm. Even in the same household. That's wild.
Of
Thank you
course, I
for
mean,
sharing.
I'm 20 years older than my youngest sibling, so we were raised by different parents, clearly.
Yeah, and that happens too, for sure. But thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for sharing that and being raw and vulnerable and bringing your story to the world.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to do it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. If I'm the only person who learns from my story, I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure as challenging it is reliving it as you're sharing the story over and over again. But if you can make an impact for one person that's listening to something similar that they're going through and having a hard time navigating it, then what a gift.
And I definitely have done enough therapy that now it's just my story. There's no emotional edge to it anymore. It's just the story. It's just where I was. And so it's not painful to tell it anymore.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time today and thank you for sharing.
Always a pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you.
Of course, and hopefully those of you watching and or listening will join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.